Happy Sunday. We are back to my Appalachian Trail story. Last time I had just completed Baxter State Park and I had entered the 100-mile wilderness, which I don't think I touched on, but the 100-mile wilderness is at the end of Baxter State Park and extends pretty much through the end of Maine. It's 100 miles where there are like no roads, no ways to resupply. It is the 100-mile wilderness, so it is just lots of trees and bodies of water and nothingness. So for that 100 miles, you have to have all of your food on you. They recommend there are ways to get off the trail. You just have to either hitchhike or have someone come pick you up, or you have to hike a long distance off trail. But for that 100 miles, you have to pretty much have all your food and supplies on you. So a lot of hikers starting heading south have to have a ton of food on them in order to make it out of that 100-mile wilderness, and you usually aren't hiking very quickly because you're just starting. Whereas if you're hiking south to north, you're moving at a much faster clip, typically because you have your hiker legs. You've done 2,000 some miles prior to, so you're moving a lot faster. So normally the people heading south takes a little bit longer to get through, so you have to manage your food supply really well. Otherwise, if you're moving north, you're going to get through pretty quick. So for us, I had about 12 days of food on us, I believe, in that time frame, just for some extra food. Sorry, my nose really itches. Just in case it took us longer to get through the 100-mile wilderness than I thought it was going to. But anyways, we wake up at Rainbow Stream Lean-To on our first morning of the hike, the first night we spent on trail. We stayed at Rainbow Stream Lean-To, and we are the first ones up. As we're getting up, we have breakfast in the tent, and we're like in the lean-to itself. I didn't have my tent up yet. And Riley's eating her food. I'm packing up stuff. I go and get my bag that's hanging in the trees that I never should have hung to begin with. And I start getting all my stuff packed as I'm eating. And as we head out of camp, I still remember there were 3 hikers that were about to summit Katahdin. They were making their way up to Baxter. They were in their sleeping bags, walking around with the bottoms unzipped, so you just see their feet and their heads. So their heads were like in the mummy part, and their feet were sticking out the bottom of the mummy bag. And I just thought it was so funny because they looked like little caterpillars in their sleeping bags. But they like wandered up to me and asked me why I was heading the opposite direction of where I should be going, apparently. And I said that we were just starting our through hike. They were very intrigued with why we were doing that. They were also very excited to hear about my experience with the Katahdin, so I told them about my summit experience. I asked them about their hike that they have pretty much accomplished and finished. And they said that they were just extending it as long as they could because they didn't want the trail to end. They had such an amazing experience on the trail. They were just kind of like meandering their way to the finish because they did still have about a week, give or take, to make that summit attempt. So talked to them for a bit, and then we hiked on. And I have my notes. As I said last time, I'm going to be going through these much more diligently because there is a lot to touch on. So this day is October 3rd of 2017. That's the date. But on this day, I do remember in Maine, there are a lot of bodies of water, a lot of lakes and ponds and rivers and beaver dams, and just, it's boggy and watery everywhere. So at some point we stopped for lunch, and I took Riley's pack off and let her run and play through the water. You'll see some of the photos at the end here of her doing that. She loves to play in the water, so any chance we got, we like walked over to the beach, which was about 10-15 feet off the trail, and I just let her run and play. So Maine was beautiful, especially as the leaves were changing, which was happening very shortly. But I do remember waking up that first morning and it kind of like hitting me like a ton of bricks, like I'm alone, like I'm doing this alone, like I'm a day in to who knows how many day hike. I know how many miles it is, but I don't know how many days it's going to take, and I just can't fathom the extent that I'm going to be hiking without seeing my family and my loved ones. My boyfriend at the time, his dog, my family, my mom, my brother, my sister, my dad, everyone it's just hitting home how grand of an adventure this is going to be, but also how alone it's going to be, which was kind of what I was looking for, but also it didn't really take effect until that morning, waking up by myself. So the next day on the trail, on the 3rd, as we start heading south, we start running into a lot of nobos, which are northbound hikers. I was a sobo, so a southbound hiker, and they were nobos. It's just like a constant wave of hiker after hiker after hiker after hiker, and everyone's interested in why I am heading the opposite direction. So it's the typical, hi, how are you, as you're meeting, exchange a few words about why you're going the opposite direction, and then you say bye and go on. During this day, I did get my trail name. I ran into a man that was in a kilt. His trail name was the Kilted Man. He was not a day hiker. He was through hiking, but his wife was driving their car and meeting him every single night, and they would stay in a hotel, which I thought was a little odd, but it is what it is. It's kind of cool they were doing it together in their own special way. But as we met, I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, hey, you're going the wrong direction. And I was like, yeah, we're doing a southbound hike. We're doing a winter southbound hike. And he was like, wow, that's awesome. Like, you're kind of like one of the White Walkers in Game of Thrones. And I love Game of Thrones. I read the books, unlike a lot of people. I was like, yeah, I guess you can look at it that way. And he was like, you should call yourself White Walker if you don't have a trail name. And I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, White Walker it is. And you don't get to choose your trail name. You don't get to choose your trail name. You should not choose your trail name. I do have friends that have chosen their own trail names, and that's just not as fun. It should be naturally gifted to you on the trail by another through hiker, not another hiker like a day hiker or a friend, but another through hiker. And it should come from some sort of experience that you have had with that person or on the trail, and they've kind of experienced you in that setting, and they have gifted you a name that is the story behind your experience. So this was my trail name. And again, trail names are something that kind of keeps your anonymity keeps you anonymous on the trail. So there are logs, like little journals, and all of the shelters and the hostels, just kind of like randomly on the trail. And it's a good way to kind of like log where you've been, so people, if they're following you or they're waiting to meet up with you, they kind of can see where you've been. It's also just a fun experience to kind of journal in them, write down your experience, what you've been experiencing so far. But it also keeps your actual name out of that setting. You don't really want to go writing your full name on there and then have some crazy people look that up. So your trail name is your identity on the trail. So my name became White Walker because I was heading south in the winter, like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones. So fitting, I liked it. I thought it was very suitable for me, and it was quick, and I wasn't going to meet a lot of hikers to get the opportunity to really bond with them and gain that experience to have them name me. So I was going to have to pick one up quickly from someone that I had just rapidly met. So I took the first name I got, and I really liked it. So the Kilted Man gave me my name. That's what I'm getting at. Oh, I also started meeting, I was wearing an Ohio State shirt at the time, and I remember meeting a lot of people from Columbus on the hike that were going north. So I started keeping a log of how many specifically Columbus, Ohio people I had met on the trail, and I believe on this day I met 7 people from Columbus, Ohio. Fun fact. I also, I'm going to touch on safety. Every time someone asks me why I'm hiking the trail, they also ask me, am I carrying a gun? Like, that's just like, as a hiker, as a female hiker, I think it's sad that they only will ask female hikers if they're carrying a gun. I've never seen someone ask a male hiker, oh, are you carrying a gun for safety? It's just female hikers. And I can understand why, but at the same time, it is infuriating to be asked that question by so many people, including my own family. Don't ask someone that. If they're doing a hike like this, they know what they're doing. They know what they're getting into. They know that their safety is paramount. So don't go and insulting them, asking them, oh, are you being safe? yeah, I'm being fucking safe. No, I did not carry a gun. I did carry mace only because my boyfriend at the time insisted that I carry it. So he got me a small thing of mace that I occasionally slept with my pillow, under my pillow with. And there on one occasion was I very, very, very glad I had it. So as a hiker, I would recommend carrying just human mace, not necessarily bear mace unless you're on the Continental Divide or the Pacific Crest trails where you do run into bear more frequently and much more aggressive bear. On the Appalachian Trail, you're probably going to see some black bear. They may give you a hard time based on time of year and food and everything, but you really don't need a gun, guys. I did carry a knife and I did carry mace. So for safety purposes, I would recommend those two things. I was happy to have the knife just for everyday purposes, cutting stuff, hanging things, just like a tool I needed. I was also glad to have it for safety, but I would also recommend carrying mace because they're both light, they're easy to pack in your little hip holsters, and it is a safety thing, kind of peace of mind to know that you have that option. So I would recommend those in terms of safety. So I'm gonna touch on this really quick because I'm running out of time for this episode, but the reason I was rushing to get out of Maine, because I was rushing to do my Katahdin Summit because the mountain does close. It necessarily doesn't close on the date that they provide. It could close before due to weather. So I was rushing to get to Katahdin, do the summit, move south, because the next stage that I had to get to was the Kennebec River, which is at mile 151.2. That river is not walkable. You have to ford all the rivers and streams on the trail except for this one. It's too deep, it's too fast. You have to get ferried across. And on October 12th is when they end the ferry, and you have to pay an $80, $50 fee to have someone ferry you across. And the ferry is a canoe, which we're going to get to because it ties into my trail name, White Walker. But that was closing on October 12th. Remember, this is October 3rd that we are currently at, and I had to get about 100 miles in that time frame to get ferried across before I had to pay $50, and I had to call in advance to get scheduled to go. So I really wanted to make that Kennebec deadline to get across the ferry, across the river by a ferry. That way I can continue on my hike, and I really didn't have a timeline except for the date that had to end so I can get to work. So we're gonna pick up the next episode kind of at the end of this, but I did finish this day's hike at the Potawago Spring Lean-To. It was at mile 48.3. I hiked 18.2 miles that day. We're going to pick up at Potawago Spring Lean-To next time.